My groom abandoned me at the altar for my long-lost twin 1 year later. A call from his mother exposed a truth that destroyed them both. My name is, protagonist's name, but since none is given, I'll use I, female, 27, and honestly, my relationship with my family has been a battle since I can remember. I have a twin sister, Talia, and from day one, she was the golden child. I still don't get how that happens with twins, but here we were. You know, usually, a golden child is an overachiever, or they share parents' interests, or they're just different in some positive way. But Talia and I, we were mirror images. Same interests. Same grades. Everything. So I could never, for the life of me, understand why they loved her more. But they did. They tried to hide it at first, subtly, but I always felt it, even as a kid. I remember one day, just breaking down, telling them I felt overlooked, unloved. Nothing changed. It was always Talia first. Talia over everyone. Talia over me. The favoritism started small. If they bought us toys or clothes, Talia got first pick. Even if the items were identical, they weren't always the same color. She'd choose, and I'd be stuck with whatever she deemed unworthy. If I ever protested, ever, I'd get lectures about being selfish, about how the gifts were the same anyway, and how I'd never get anywhere in life acting entitled. Then, it just got worse. Talia started to enjoy the attention, the pampering. And I hated her for it. So, we were never close. That rift between us widened in middle school when she ditched our friend group to hang out with the cool kids. Honestly, it was a relief. I finally had my friends to myself, some peace at school. My friends were shocked at her sudden change, but they got used to it, and my friendships grew stronger. Throughout middle and high school, that gap between Talia and me just kept growing. By graduation, we had totally different interests, completely distinct social circles. Which, again, worked for me. Less interaction. She was still mean sometimes, especially at school, playing for her new audience, but I was so used to it, it just never fazed me. But then, at the end of high school, everything escalated to a level I honestly haven't recovered from. I haven't spoken to her since. I worked my tail off on college applications. I knew what I wanted, and all my friends were aiming high too. I didn't know about Talia's preparations, wasn't nosy, never asked. But she was just too confident about admissions for someone who seemed unprepared. To my absolute dismay, she got in, and I didn't. Long story short, I found out, just in the nick of time, that she had stolen my essay and submitted it. I was beyond furious. And I knew that if I told my parents, they'd just say I needed to suck it up, that nothing could be done now. I was done being nice. Done being trampled on. So, I decided to go nuclear. I emailed the university, with all the details of her plagiarism, showing them exactly how that work was mine. I even told them about my messed up home situation, asking them to be discreet if they responded to her. Well, they did. They blacklisted her, citing plagiarism. When she got that email, she sat there, disbelief etched on her face, then she looked at me with such hate, I thought I'd actually collapse. But she couldn't say a word to Mom and Dad. What could she have said? Oh, I stole her essay? I knew I'd caught her. And I was more than elated that she was finally getting what she deserved. The situation was tense, and honestly, a little hilarious for me. I knew what she'd done, she knew what I'd done. I didn't want to go to our parents, and she couldn't. That would mean admitting her theft. Unfortunately for her, Mom and Dad were heartbroken. This injustice. They were convinced there was no plagiarism. They were going to fight for their precious Talia. And that's when things really got messy. My parents sent their email, and what they got back was a detailed reply about her application, and the damning evidence, the source she stole from. My work. I foolishly, so foolishly, hoped that when they saw what their precious daughter had done to me, they'd finally see her for who she was. Maybe, just maybe, I'd finally matter. But what happened was the exact opposite. I was yelled at for days. Yelled at for purposely ruining Talia's life and career. The moment they learned I was the one who reported it, they had their scapegoat. It didn't matter that she stole my work. It didn't matter that she was in the wrong. It didn't matter that because of her I couldn't go to that university. The only thing that mattered was that I outed her without consulting them. They called me every name in the book. Said the right thing would have been to talk to them, and they'd have found a solution. I just looked at them. Their only solution, I knew, would have been to let her off scot-free, and I'd be told to suck it up and apply elsewhere. It was a total mess at home. No one, absolutely no one, was willing to see my perspective. It became crystal clear, no matter what I did, I'd be the black sheep. No matter what Talia did, she'd never face consequences. The next few months were brutal, but I was just counting down the days to college. I knew that the minute I stepped out of that house, I wasn't coming back. There was nothing to come back to anyway. And that's exactly what I did. I left for college, went low contact with my parents, and no contact with Talia. She was dead to me after that stunt. I never wanted anything to do with her again. College was a breath of fresh air. A complete, refreshing change. I made amazing friends, built a good life, worked hard. I met Matt in college. We clicked instantly. He was a year older, but we shared the same friend group. Right before he graduated, he asked me to be his girlfriend. I said yes. He was already one of my closest friends, and I was so happy with him. It felt like the most logical next step. When I said yes, he confessed he'd had a crush on me for years, just trying to muster the courage to ask. I thought it was adorable. Told him I would have said yes even earlier. We had such a good relationship. We were already best friends, so we knew each other inside out. There was this incredible comfort, this honesty. It just felt natural. I even told him everything about my family. How I was low contact with my parents, absolutely no contact with my sister, and that nothing, could ever make me talk to her again. I asked him to respect that. He, with his picture-perfect family, parents madly in love, 4 close, supportive siblings, thought my story was absurd. My ordeal was alien to him. I respected that, and I genuinely loved being around his family. Their love was adorable. I'd been so deprived of it, I couldn't help but feel a little jealous sometimes. But I made it absolutely clear, he should never, ever, expect me to go back to my family and sort things out just because he couldn't conceive of dysfunction. He seemed okay with it. Which is why I trusted him. I never knew this was about to become the worst time of my life. 2 years ago, when I was 25, Matt proposed. I obviously said yes. We'd been together for almost 4 years, and I was sure he was the one. He'd introduced me to his family early on, and they'd welcomed me with open arms. I finally felt like I had a family. His siblings, 2 sisters and a brother, were so welcoming. I built independent relationships with each of them. It felt like I was part of the family before I even married him. Marriage was the natural next step. I was so happy with my relationship, with the life I'd built. We were supposed to get married last year. The entire year leading up to it was a whirlwind of planning, wedding, honeymoon, everything. It was stressful, and it was challenging for our relationship. That's when I realized we had differences, and working through them took effort. But we pushed through, willingly. Then came one of our biggest fights, the guest list. I wanted a small, intimate wedding. He, on the other hand, had a huge family. He wanted his immediate family, uncles, aunts, siblings, partners, everyone. I had no family I wanted to invite. No one I was close to. I told him I'd only be inviting my friends, and that I absolutely did not want my family anywhere near me on my wedding day. At first, he agreed. But I saw the hesitation. I asked if there was a problem. He said no, so I dropped it. A week later, though, he came to me. He said I needed to invite my family. There would be no wedding without family present. My eyes went wide. I reminded him that I'd always made it clear my family wasn't part of my life. They didn't even know I was engaged. The only 2 people needed for a wedding were the bride and groom. There was no reason to get worked up about my parents not attending. But he wouldn't back down. He said whatever fight I had with them could be set aside for one day. He wasn't asking me to mend things, or forgive them, just to invite them. I told him, point blank, that any invitation would imply I wanted to mend things, and that was the last thing I wanted to do. In hindsight, I should have left him right then. I could see that despite claiming to understand my reality, which I was always transparent about, he was throwing it back in my face. But I was a fool in love. We fought so much, and I almost stopped talking to him. But deep down, I felt like we needed to compromise. After a lot of back and forth, he finally told me why he insisted. He didn't want his family to think he was marrying a woman who didn't have a good relationship with her family. His family, he explained, was very conservative, family first. He felt my parents' absence would reflect poorly on me, and he didn't want that. At the time, I thought his thought process was caring, thoughtful even. But I gradually realized how problematic it truly was. He was more worried about the impression his extended family would get, because his parents and siblings already knew I didn't get along with mine, than about what this would do to me psychologically. The show was more important to him than his bride. I should have seen it. I didn't, and I paid the price. After endless arguing, I agreed to call my parents. But that's where I drew the line. I told him I'd have them there, but no other family members. Especially not Talia. There would be no father-daughter dance. My family wouldn't be allowed to give speeches. Those were my conditions for inviting them, and he had to meet me halfway. Thankfully, he agreed. He knew he didn't have much choice. I also warned him not to contact anyone on his own. Only I would call them, and only when I felt the time was right. I knew if I gave them information too early, they'd cook up some plan to get Talia to tag along. I just couldn't agree to that. And honestly, I also hoped that if I told them late enough, maybe they wouldn't be able to make it. That way, I'd technically be in the right, and still get my way. I think Matt suspected this, but he didn't say anything. So, that was that. I informed Mom and Dad 6 weeks before the wedding. Their immediate response. Obviously, the entire family would be there to support me on my special day. I cut them off right there. I told them there was absolutely no way Talia was coming to my wedding. It was just the two of them, and if they tried to be sneaky and brought her anyway, I would personally escort them out. They protested, saying it was the perfect time for the family to reunite, that I needed to stop being a baby, that I'd had my revenge and should be satisfied. I told them this was my only contact before the wedding. They knew the venue and time. If they wanted to come, they could. But if they tried anything, I wouldn't hesitate. Then I disconnected the call. I thought that was a stern enough warning. I thought it would deter them. I was very, very wrong. I should have known Talia would show up and make a mess. She did make a mess. But it was far, far bigger than I ever imagined. A week before the wedding, my parents flew down and checked into a hotel. They told me they'd come early, wanted to give me something, and wanted me to come with Matt. I was so reluctant. I didn't want all those old feelings, all that toxicity, resurfacing just a week before my wedding. But Matt said I should go, that he'd come with me, and at the first sign of misbehavior, we'd walk out. That made me feel a little better, so we decided to go. To my surprise, though I'm sure many of you already guessed, Talia was there. This was their gift. A heart-to-heart. A reconciliation. The moment I saw her, I wanted to get up and leave, but I just froze. I looked at Matt. He sat down. And then they started talking. It was all a load of bull. Honestly, I don't even remember what they said. I was just zoned out, mentally paralyzed. All I could see was an ambush. I think I snapped back to reality a few minutes later. I got up, grabbed Matt's arm, and told him, "We're leaving." He resisted. He actually said, "We should just sort this out." I looked him dead in the eyes and said, "I'm going. You're free to play happy families with them all you want." And I stormed off. I checked into a hotel, sent him a text that I was there and would talk when I felt better, then switched my phone off. I think I drowned an entire bottle of wine. The next day, I woke up feeling dizzy. I turned my phone back on, expecting at least a few texts from Matt. Nothing. He hadn't reached out. It felt weird. He's usually not the type to give me space. He likes to resolve issues immediately. I waited a few more hours. Still nothing. I called him that night. Straight to voicemail. He had ghosted me. A week before our wedding. I still don't have it in me to recount every single thing that happened in those next 7 days. But I knew the wedding was off. He was completely unresponsive. He wasn't even talking to his family. Nobody knew what was up with him. It was like he'd vanished. So, I called the caterers, everyone. Told them the wedding was off. I blocked him on what was supposed to be our wedding day and stayed with a friend until I sorted out my life. 2 months later, I found out. He had married Talia. On the same day he was supposed to marry me. Outrageous. It felt like I was trapped in a nightmare. I just couldn't understand how this happened, why he would do something like that, marry my sister, whom he'd only met a week before. It made no sense. I was an absolute wreck when I found out. It felt like she had one again, and there was nothing I could do. It was horrible. I was in one of the darkest phases of my life. I had to rebuild myself emotionally, from scratch. It took every ounce of strength not to keep tabs on them. Slowly, I started doing better. Much better. And then yesterday, I got a call. From Matt's mother, Nancy. She wanted to meet me. I really didn't want to. I didn't want anything to do with him, or his family, anymore. I just couldn't go through this again. But she was in tears, begging me to meet her, one last time. I didn't know what to do. I'd never seen her like that. Maybe meeting her would give me some closure. But I didn't want all my progress to shatter. I felt so helpless. I met with Nancy. It was therapeutic, but also incredibly saddening. I finally learned what had really happened after I stormed off. It's a mess. And even though I feel a strange sense of vindication, I still feel bad about everything. Nancy told me that after I left, my parents and Talia spun this elaborate story to Matt. All about my childhood, why I was no contact. And the worst part, he believed them. Every single word. That's why he didn't reach out to me for days. Nancy said he was in too much of a mess to think rationally. But then I had called the caterers and decorators, cancelled everything. He started getting confirmation calls, and he panicked. He thought I was cancelling the wedding because I was in the wrong. And in some twisted way, that confirmed everything my parents had told him. Nancy said Matt was an absolute mess. He went to my parents for advice. My parents. And they, those manipulative monsters, suggested he could just marry Talia for the ceremony so he wouldn't be ridiculed by his family. And then, Talia and he could get the marriage annulled or divorced once the fuss died down. Nancy said their entire family was against this stupid decision. They told him cancelling the wedding was better than marrying my twin. But he seemed to lose all sense. He went ahead with their insane plan because he couldn't deal with the shame of being left at the altar. And ever since, Talia has refused to divorce him. She's been dragging the marriage along, saying she won't divorce him, and if she does, she'll demand hefty alimony. It's a train wreck, through and through. Matt had no choice but to continue. But a few days ago, things changed. Talia, in a drunken state, told Matt the truth. Everything. How they had trapped him. How foolish he had been. She even revealed the essay she stole from me, admitting that everything they told him about me was a lie. Matt has been depressed ever since. He hasn't gone home. Hasn't picked up her calls, or anyone else's, for that matter. Only 2 days ago did Nancy finally get a hold of him. He's devastated. He told Nancy he made the biggest mistake of his life and had no idea how he could ever apologize to me. He even said it serves him right for breaking my heart. But he also said all he wanted was a chance to talk to me, just to explain his side, and then we could see what to do. I stared at Nancy, my eyes wide with disbelief. I made it crystal clear. Any notion of us between Matt and me was long dead. If he harbored even a flicker of hope otherwise, he was living in a delusion. I told her, point blank, that I had zero intention of speaking to him. Not now. Not ever. He had made his choices. Dug his own hole. And now, he could rot in it for all I cared. He was legally my sister's husband. No matter how twisted the path that led them to the altar, I refused to insert myself into their chaos or lift a finger to pull him out. Nancy broke down in tears at my words. Her sobs echoed in that quiet room as she pleaded with me to reconsider, to give him just one chance. But I stood firm. My mind was made up. No amount of begging could sway me. I had finally closed that painful chapter of my life, and the idea of cracking it open again filled me with dread. She wouldn't let it go, though, insisting that a single conversation might change everything, that I owed it to myself to hear him out before deciding for good. I muttered that I'd think about it, more to escape the pressure than anything else, and then I walked out. The weight of that encounter left me reeling, my thoughts a tangled storm. Since then, she sent several messages, each one tugging at my resolve. But I've left them unread. I'm at a complete loss. The thought of diving back into that emotional wreckage just exhausts me. I simply don't have the strength to revisit the pain. In the end, nothing explosive unfolded. If that's the kind of twist you were anticipating, well, for the sake of my own sanity and the fragile peace I'd managed to build, I chose not to meet with Matt. I laid it all out for Nancy in a message, hoping it would end the conversation once and for all. I expressed sympathy for the mess they were in. But I emphasized that Matt had brought this upon himself by siding with virtual strangers, my manipulative family, over the woman he claimed to love. All because he couldn't stomach the idea of a little social embarrassment. I reminded her that a year ago, I was in an infinitely darker place. Abandoned. Shattered. With no one to turn to. I didn't have parents to console me, no family checking in to see if I was okay. Matt, on the other hand, was surrounded by a supportive network. Yet, he squandered his chance with me. Forgiveness. He hadn't earned it. And I wasn't in the business of handing it out freely. I didn't stick around for her response. The moment the message sent, I blocked her number. I was done with the guilt trips. The emotional manipulation disguised as concern. I know this might paint me as cold, maybe even cruel, for refusing to help him climb out of the pit he fell into. But deep down, I see it as the universe balancing the scales. Karma, delivering a long overdue reckoning. I had to claw my way back from rock bottom entirely on my own, piecing together a life from the ruins without a single lifeline. Why shouldn't he experience that same isolation, that same ache of regret? It's only just that he confronts the consequences of his cowardice without me swooping in to save the day. I sincerely hope this is the last I hear from any of them, though a nagging intuition tells me they might try again. Perhaps through a different phone, a mutual friend, or some other roundabout way. But I've drawn an unbreakable line. No matter the method, I won't engage. I won't read the texts, won't answer the calls, won't acknowledge their existence. Whatever path Matt chooses next, whether he remains trapped in that sham of a marriage or fights tooth and nail for a divorce, is entirely between him and Talia, his so-called wife. My heart holds no lingering affection for either of them. That well ran dry the moment the truth surfaced. This marks the definitive end for me. A clean severance from the toxicity that once defined so much of my world. In a strange way, knowing how profoundly this has wrecked him provides a measure of solace. A quiet closure I didn't expect. It eases my mind at night. This awareness that he's finally grasping the magnitude of his betrayal, the irreplaceable treasure he threw away simply because he feared a fleeting whisper of gossip among his circle. Let that lesson sink in deep. Stupidity like his comes with a steep price, and he's paying it in full. To expand on the whirlwind of emotions that followed my initial refusal, I spent days oscillating between anger and a hollow numbness. Part of me replayed Nance's tear-streaked face, wondering if my hardness stemmed from self-preservation or something darker, like vengeance. Yet, every time doubt crept in, I'd remind myself of the timeline. The ambush meeting, Matt's silence, the cancelled wedding, and then, insult upon injury, discovering he'd married Talia on our intended date. That sequence wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a deliberate chain of betrayals. Nance's revelations about Talia's drunken confession and Matt's subsequent breakdown didn't erase the hurt. They only highlighted how avoidable it all was if he'd trusted me even a fraction. I journaled furiously those nights, pouring out the resentment toward my parents for orchestrating the lie, toward Talia for her endless sabotage, and toward Matt for prioritizing optics over loyalty. Therapy sessions helped, too. My counselor affirmed that boundaries aren't brutality, they're survival. Blocking Nancy wasn't impulsive. It was a necessary shield against further erosion of my progress. As for the karma angle, it's not about wishing ill. It's about equity. I rebuilt alone, new routines, deeper friendships, a promotion at work that demanded focus I channeled from pain. Matt's family, for all their picture-perfect facade, enabled his panic-driven decisions by not intervening forcefully enough. Now they're grappling with the fallout. And while I pity Nancy as a mother, her son's actions aren't my burden. If he truly regrets it, let him prove it through actions that don't involve me, legal battles, therapy, whatever it takes to untangle from Talia without dragging me back in. My closure comes from detachment, from recognizing that their drama is a self-contained storm I no longer need to weather. Sleep comes easier now, unburdened by what IFS. The chapter is sealed. The book closed. And I'm turning the page to a future unshadowed by their mistakes. So, tell me, what would you have done in my place? Have you ever had to draw a line this hard with family or a partner? Let me know in the comments below, I really want to hear your thoughts.